Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Enzo Maresca's pre-match press conference where he spoke about João Pedro and Nicolas Jackson. Not only that, but we have some player updates regarding Nicolas Jackson, Noni Madueke, Axel Disasi, Acheampong, Christopher Nkunku, and Morgan Rogers. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k by the end of 2025. Now, kicking things off with Enzo Maresca's press conference, he speaks on Nico Jackson and he says Nico is training well. In almost the last 2 games he's played, he's got sent off. He played the Conference League final and score. At this moment, he's okay. They then asked Enzo Maresca on Nicolas Jackson what the game plan is for tonight's game, and he said Nico is okay. Game plan for tomorrow? Every game we try to adapt a little bit ourselves in the terms of finding solutions. Tomorrow we are going to do exactly the same. I find it very interesting in terms of the fans' views and what Maresca has said about Nicolas Jackson in the recent weeks. Now, we know that he's a very frustrating player currently in terms of when he's missing chances, and also for the sort of discipline or lack of discipline on the pitch. I find it quite wild that a lot of Chelsea fans have wrote him off. He should never play for the club again. That's it. Sell him this window. And I feel like I can't decide whether it's the fans being very reactionary about it or if fans are just completely done with him. Now, me personally, yes, he's very frustrating and he's annoyed me with his lack of discipline on the pitch, but I still feel like he's going to play games for Chelsea. Every time his name is mentioned, it's almost like, yeah, he's done, sell him, get rid of him, buy. He's had his 2 seasons, he's not really done a lot, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he has got 42 GA in 2 seasons for someone who's relatively new in professional football. Now, I'm not sitting there just trying to stick up for Jackson and say that he's a saint, because he clearly isn't. He knows what he's done wrong, and it was very frustrating before the Conference League final, what he'd done at Newcastle, but then he redeemed himself, or it seemed to be redeeming himself in the Conference League final, and then he goes and does something stupid in the Club World Cup. And I feel like he does deserve a chance to redeem himself at some point. And when you look at the sort of, logistics of signing new players, João Pedro's been there like a week. And I just feel like, as much as we all want João Pedro to start, and I even said in my preview, like, I'd be happy for either striker to start, I feel like Nicolas Jackson has a point to prove. He has let down the fan base, he's let himself down, he's let his teammates and the managers down, and you can see that he wants to, do right those wrongs, essentially. I feel like tonight could be a very good opportunity for him to do that, to be, have a bit between his teeth, fire in his belly, go out and really try and prove a point. But so many people have just wrote him off completely, and I'm just very curious to know your thoughts down below regarding Nicolas Jackson. Should we just sell him and get rid of him and cut ties with him completely over a couple of red cards? Or is it more just a frustration and that you feel like João Pedro is going to do a better job? Because I feel like what Enzo Maresca is saying here is he's not saying Nico's going to play, and he's not saying he's not going to play. He's kind of not beating around the bush, but being very vague. He's like, yeah, he's training okay. We know that he got sent off in the last couple of games. He had a couple game ban. We're going to try and adapt our game plan and see what we can do. Now, we also know that Nicolas Jackson and João Pedro offer something different in terms of playability on the pitch. Jackson seems to have that hold-up play who drops a bit deeper. João Pedro is a lot more technically gifted with the ball and can play a myriad of positions, either out left in the central areas or as a 9. So I know that there's going to be a tactical difference, but I'm just very curious to know your thoughts down below regarding Nicolas Jackson. Do you feel like his time at Chelsea is up, or do you feel like he does deserve a shot of redemption and he's just young and makes some silly mistakes? Enzo Maresca then spoke on João Pedro and the pressure on him, and he says, for sure, João, Liam and Nico know exactly the number 9s at Chelsea. In my idea, I prefer to have all 5 players scoring 10 to 12 goals each, rather than one striker scoring 40 goals. We expect more goals next season from our attacking players. Now, I completely agree with what Enzo Maresca is saying here. I would much rather having more players scoring less goals than one focal point that scores you 40 goals a season, which I know sounds a bit strange on the surface, but when you really think of how football works and how Chelsea have been over the last few seasons with injuries and rotation and the scoring or the lack of clinical finishes within the squad, I feel like we have really improved in this summer window already, and we yet can still improve with more of the summer window to go. In terms of finishes, João Pedro is going to score goals. Delap is a great finisher. He's a natural finisher. We know Jackson can still contribute goals to the team, which is great. So that's 3 players that are all scoring. If they all score like 10 to 12 goals each, that's a lot of goals. It's like, just under 40 goals between them. And it gives Chelsea flexibility where we're not relying on one goal scorer. There was one season where Cole Palmer was head and shoulders above everyone else. He's still going to score goals and contribute to the assists with these different types of players around and the new system that Enzo Maresca is playing. So when you start adding up all the goals from across the squad, that contributes to a lot of goals across a season, across a tournament, across a campaign in general. And I feel like that is a stronger position to be in rather than having one striker that will get you 30 to 40 goals a season who could potentially be injured and out for large spells. And then you're constantly looking around going, well, we haven't got our main goal scorer. Where are the goals going to come from? And I feel like we felt that a little bit last season when Palmer had a drop-off in form. He was still contributing goals early in the season, still scoring goals and assisting for fun. But then we had a period where admittedly the whole team weren't playing as well, but the goals seemed to dry it up. And in the second half of the season, after we started coming out of that run of form, we went into that really hard run of play, we were getting goals from everywhere. Cucurella was one of our top goal scorers last season, which is wild. But if he can continue to do that and add the 8, 9, potentially 10 goals to his tally next season alongside Palmer, Pedro, Delap, Gittins, Enzo, João Pedro, all these other players that can contribute at least 10 goals a season. All of a sudden, if one player goes out missing that machine, it can still continue to run, and we have a variety of players that can step up and then fill in that void as well as scoring goals on their own. We forget that Enzo Fernandez really stepped up last season. He had well over 20 GA, and it's still going. He's still ticking on with his assists and his goals. So, I feel like going into this season, Maresca is spot on. If we have 4 or 5 players all scoring 10 to 12 goals, it makes us stronger as a team and more adaptable, more versatile. So I really do agree with that. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below regarding João Pedro, Jackson, Delap. How many goals do you think they're going to score between them? Or do you think there's going to be an out-and-out goal scorer between the three that kind of, goes to the top during the season that we're not going to expect? Enzo Maresca also spoke on Noni Madueke and his frame of mind, and he said, personally, I think the same noise before the Palmeiras game, and we gave him half an hour and he was very good. I don't have any doubts that if we need Noni, he will help us. I can understand when there is noise around you, it is difficult to deal with that. And again, I feel like this is a nice thing to say for someone like Noni Madueke, almost putting an arm around him and saying, look, I know there's a lot of noise. He's done this with a few players over the season as well. There's a lot of noise from the outside. He knows he has a job to do, and when we give him the chance and we need to rely on him, he does come through. And I said this in yesterday's game, and why I put him as a starting left winger for tonight's game is because when he came on off the bench, he was very bright, he was very positive, won us a lot of corners, was trying to beat his man. He had a very good shot saved near the end of the game, which in any other day would have gone in. It would have been a fantastic goal. I feel like Noni Madueke, we are still assuming that he's going to go to Arsenal. There's a little bit more news on him later on this video regarding him, so make sure you keep watching. But we are assuming that he is going to go to Arsenal at some point this window. Personal terms have been agreed. Arteta has sold him on the project, and I still feel he has a vital position to play in Chelsea's system, but it very much looks like Noni is going. So I think it's very important that up until that point, Noni does give 100% and plays as a professional, which I have no doubt that he will do. There's no inklings or anything we've seen before which tells me that he's not going to be a professional up until the day he leaves. But I think Maresca's kind of playing this the right way, like he's done with other players, of saying, look, there's a lot of noise going around. We try to ignore that. We try and focus on the game. With these sorts of negotiations going on during a campaign, it must be tough for the manager to kind of manage this, because we are in an open transfer season, so that he's more within his right to do that. And we know a lot of it is the agent's work rather than the player to player or player to club. But conversations would have been had. That aren't going to be publicised, and he's still got to go in and train every day. We've got games coming up in this competition. It's a very important time, so I feel like Enzo Maresca's dealt with this very well regarding Noni, and I do feel like the writing's on the wall. Noni Madueke will be going sometime soon, but I'd love to know your thoughts about Maresca and Noni Madueke. Do you think there's been a falling out behind the scenes that we don't know of? Do you think the players are falling out with Madueke? Do you feel that this has potentially caused a rift between the team as it's very, very settled? I don't want to kind of be stirring anything. I'm just curious to kind of know what you guys think was happening behind the scenes, because we only see very, very little as fans, and we only get to see through press conferences and behind the scenes training footage where everything's kind of very professional and everything's going on as it should be. And I feel like Maresca is right in saying this, but I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Imran Osman has reported that Nicolas Jackson doesn't want to leave Chelsea this summer. He has taken on board all the criticism and competition. He sees it all as a call to improve. His aim is to put the last few games behind him and get back to his best form. Now, this is one thing I am very admirable of Nicolas Jackson and other players within the squad, is their hunger. They're willing to fight for their positions. And we feel like we've got a very settled squad now. You've got the likes of Cucurella, Palmer, Caicedo, Enzo, Reece James, and a myriad of others, right? And we know we have a set of untouchables, essentially, which is pretty much everyone I've named there. And all the other players have to fight for their place. Now, we saw a similar thing with Marc Cucurella when he first signed. I'll be the first to hold my hands up. I did not rate him. I thought he was a hideous, horrendous defender when we first signed him. It took him a long time to hit the ground, like to kind of settle his feet in and then start hitting the ground running in a Chelsea shirt. Now he's one of my favourite players. I think he's unbelievable as a left back and one of the best left backs in world football currently. That guy is an absolute monster in Enzo Maresca's system. And what I like about Nicolas Jackson is, I've said this before, we don't want to hear your apologies. We want to see you prove it on the pitch. That's where we want you to make it up to us. That's where we want to see the improvements. We want to see you, mature as a player. He is still very young. He has made some mistakes. And look, we know his finishing needs improving. We know that he's had these red cards recently. There's lack of discipline and they've just been wild challenges that are no needed to happen. Right? We're fully aware of that. But like I said earlier in the video, I feel like a lot of the fan base have already made their mind up on Jackson. They're done with him. They're washing their hands of him. They want to see him play again. And look, I respect that. From the other side, I kind of agree with that to a point, but the other side is like, he is young. Does he deserve a chance to at least redeem himself? We now have other competition in his position with João Pedro and Liam Delap. So naturally, if he doesn't perform, you have two strikers ahead of him. That's down to Nicolas Jackson. The way I see it is if Jackson can fight his way through to be picked for the first team, then we should be backing him because he's had to go past two other players that are better than him in my opinion. So if you see a Nicolas Jackson start, you have to automatically think that he's outworked Pedro and Delap in training to earn that spot. Then it's down to him to perform on that pitch to then keep his position. Now obviously tonight, it's a very unique position, and I said this in my preview yesterday. If you haven't seen it, it is on the channel. Feel free to go watch that. João Pedro's been at the club for 5 or 6 days, and people are screaming for him to start, and I would love to see him start. He had such a great, 35, 40 minutes that he had in the last game. He looked unbelievable. Looked like he'd been at Chelsea for years. But realistically, I just don't know whether he's up to standard. Now, Maresca has said in his press conference that João Pedro and Nicolas Jackson are both ready and can play. So that does sway things into João Pedro's favour. But again, it's just, what are we going to do with Nicolas Jackson? Has he, in tonight's game, it's a case of Jackson or Pedro, and Jackson's been fully rested for the last 2 games due to suspension and has been training well. So there's a bit of a rock and a hard place for Maresca in terms of who do you go with. It is knockout football, you play your best 11. So do you go with a brand new striker that's only been there less than a week but is ready to play? Or do you go with Nicolas Jackson and give him a chance to redeem himself? Because the way I see it is if you start Jackson and he doesn't play well, you hook him off, you bring João Pedro on. If you start João Pedro and he's playing okay, or maybe not playing to the standards that we want him to because he's so new, you hook him off, you bring Jackson on. Now think about this for a second, Chelsea fans. Who would you much rather come off the bench? Nicolas Jackson come off the bench or João Pedro coming off the bench? Who do you think will have more of an impact? That's where my headspace is. But regarding to Nicolas Jackson specifically and wanting to fight for his place, I'm glad that he wants to do that. I'm glad that he wants to fight for his place because he knows he's messed up. He knows he's messed up. And he knows that we don't want his apologies. And yes, he knows he's a frustrating player and he frustrates a lot of the fan base. We expect more of him at this stage. And whether that's unfair or not, that's just the reality. Fans want more from Nicolas Jackson. So again, I'm very curious to know your thoughts. Do we sell Jackson? Do we allow him to have a chance of a redemption arc? Or do you feel it'll be natural selection within this squad that he won't get much game time because Delap and Pedro are better than him? Let me know your thoughts down below. Get Globo reported yesterday what Thiago Silva said about reuniting with Chelsea. He said, I'm looking to help the coaching staff with some interesting details, stuff that will stay between us. The report then goes on to say that I don't know Enzo Maresca that well, but I know a lot of the players there. I speak to them practically every week. Some of them are very close to me. I'm happy about this match. It's going to be a special day for me, but it'll be even more special if we qualify. Now look, whether you consider Thiago Silva a Chelsea legend or not, he's definitely a cult hero at this club. We absolutely adore Thiago Silva, and some still say that we let him go too early, even though he was getting on to nearly 40 years old. This guy is a Rolls-Royce defender, and he's doing absolute wonders at Fluminense, and I'm happy for him, genuinely happy for him. A generational talent, a generational centre-back, unbelievable. And when you speak to any player speaks about Thiago Silva, they have nothing but amazing things to say because he was such a good professional and such a good centre-back. Unfortunately, Thiago, not like you're watching this, but on the rare occasion that you are, we don't want you to go through. We like the nice words. We don't want your tactics to work, and we want to be sending you packing. And we hope it is a special day in terms of the handshakes, the reminiscent times. But at the end of the day, when the final whistle is blown, we are hoping that Chelsea go through and not Thiago Silva. And that's just my opinion. I'm sure you guys share a very similar sentiment when it comes to Thiago Silva. But I thought it was very interesting that we're going to, this is romanticised sort of meeting now. Thiago Silva playing his old club. Obviously, Chelsea playing the third Brazilian opposition in this competition. It's going to be very, very tough. So yeah, I just thought it was very nice. I wanted to react to it with you guys and kind of talk about Thiago Silva because he was such a good player. Still is an amazing player. And look, he's There was a clip circulating on X the other day of him giving a halftime team talk when they were playing Inter Milan, and it sent shivers down my spine. If I was in the room when he delivered that speech, I'd run through walls for the bloke. And I can see why a lot of players resonate with him and look to him for leadership, because he's an unbelievable centre-back. Whoever plays up front today, João Pedro and Nicolas Jackson, either or, both, one or the other, they're in for a tough day. It's going to be a long day at the office for them, because you're going to have Thiago Silva up against you, keeping you out. So it's going to be tough. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions on Thiago Silva and what he said down here. I think it's very interesting. He's saying, going to try and have the inside edge and tell these coaches how it can help like beat an Enzo Maresca side. I think it's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time, you never know. You never know. He might be like, I've got a few things on a few players that are still currently there. They're probably still doing these types of things. So do you think that will help Fluminense going into this game? It's going to be a very tough game anyway. What are your thoughts on Thiago Silva? Did Chelsea let him go too soon? Or would you like to see him back at Chelsea in a coaching role when he eventually hangs his boots up? Enzo Maresca spoke on Romeo Lavia's fitness, and he says Romeo is in training, but he is not training with us. Unfortunately, he is not ready for tomorrow, which, meaning tonight because of today's upload. And again, I said this in a previous video where we had Romeo Lavia with question marks in terms of his fitness and whether he could play, whether he couldn't. I love Romeo Lavia as a player. I think he's unbelievable. I've said this many, many times. We all agree he's an unbelievable baller. But we all know that he's very injury prone. He's 21 years old. He's got a long time to kind of overcome these hurdles and get a good fitness plan, stay fit for a long time. I would be panicking if we didn't have Santos and Asugo. But the fact that we have Caicedo, Enzo, Santos and Asugo without Lavia, that's 4 very good players in that middle of the park that can hold down and do a job. We saw Andre Santos take Caicedo's place in the quarterfinals, and he had an incredible game. And that just instills you with a lot more confidence that I want Lavia to do well. I want Lavia to get better. I want him to stay fit. But this also is a plus for him because it allows him to not be forced back. And Maresca's done very well with the man management to not force him back, wrap him in bubble wrap and all that type of thing. But we can continue to do so until he eventually overcomes these just like sort of reoccurring injuries that he seems to pick up by going to the shops and getting milk. It seems ridiculous. But I hope that Chelsea keep Lavia. I feel like we will. He's got such an incredible talent, such an incredible potential. It's just getting over these injuries. Like I said, with the depth that we've got, I feel super confident and don't worry or panic at all that he's not fit. What that does give me a bit more reassurance is knowing that he can really take his time and there's no pressure on him at all. Because again, from the player's psyche, he wants to play football. He wants to be doing his job for the team, and he's fully aware that he's constantly getting injured. So I'm sure there's a bit of that playing into it, but at least now he can kind of settle about that and just get better in his own time. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below about Romeo Lavia. Would Chelsea be idiots to sell him this summer? Do you think we should keep him because of his age and how good he is? And now we have the cover, he could be a rotation player. Very curious to know your thoughts. ESPN have reported that Arsenal's talk with Chelsea and Noni Madueke are progressing positively. A deal worth €50 million could be sealed by the end of the week. Mikel Arteta is a big fan of the Englishman and believes he can turn him into a top-class left winger. This is very important information. Depending on how true the source is, as ESPN, again, we react to the headlines. We're not saying that it's gospel. But Arteta believes he can turn him into a world-class or a top-class left winger. That makes so much more sense as to why Arsenal want to sign him. They were going after Rodrigo. They potentially still are going after Rodrigo. They now want Noni Madueke. Chelsea want £50 million. Arsenal value him at £40 million currently. I can rest assured they will find an amicable deal which is happy for both parties. Chelsea are looking at the Kudos deal and saying, well, West Ham want 60 million. Elanga went for 52 million. We want 50 million for Noni Madueke. And there was a big question mark around why Arsenal wanted Noni Madueke. Is he going to be a backup to Saka? Or is he going to play on the left wing? Now, in my opinion, I think he's a better player than Martinelli on current form. On current form, for sure. And I feel like if you do sign him for that left-hand side, and he does really take to that role, because we know that when Madueke has played left wing for us, it's very hit and miss. It either goes incredibly well or not his game. And there's no real in between. If Arteta has sold him on the project and the dream, and he's basically saying, you've got guaranteed minutes on that left-hand side at Arsenal, I can see why Noni Madueke has gone, yeah, I'm actually interested. I could do with that. Because we know that he can play left wing, and when he's on his day playing on the left, it's almost like unlocking a new character on a Tekken game, right? You just think, wow, where has this been? Why have we not used this before? When it doesn't go his way, not so good, right? But we can also say the same on the right-hand side. When he plays well, he's unbelievable. When he plays well, he's one of the worst players on the pitch. And it's just the inconsistency of being a young player, which is expected of someone of his age. So I just thought this is very vital information that Arteta believes he can turn him into a top-class left winger, not a right winger, because there's no way he's getting over Saka. We know that. But would he have been comfortable being a backup to Saka? That was the question. But if he's going to go over there and try and be the number one left winger, then I think that turns Arsenal into a very frightening side on the wide areas with someone like Saka and Madueke left and right. Regardless of what Arsenal fans think of Noni, a lot of them are going into meltdown. They don't want him. But it looks like the writing's on the wall. It looks like he will be going to Arsenal at some point. Some suggesting that the deal could be done by the end of the week, which is a bit wild. Let's just hope that if he is to go, as expected, Chelsea get the most amount of money that we can for him. You know, if they want 50 million, let's hope that they get 50 million. Whether it's a straight up cash or whether it's 45 plus 5 and add-ons, whatever. As long as Chelsea they don't drop to Arsenal's valuation, I would be happy with that, because that gives us more funds to then go get a one in, one out type thing, where if Madueke goes, we'll then go get another winger. Or we can use that money to invest into other parts of the squad, like a left back. We still need cover in that left back position, potentially a goalkeeper. So yeah, I think that's kind of it. I think it's wraps when it comes to Noni Madueke staying or going. Arteta wants him as a left winger, which I thought was very interesting. But I'd like to know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments. Do you think that Madueke could be a very good left winger over at Arsenal? Are you surprised that Arteta wants to utilise him as a left winger and not as a backup to Bakary Sagna? I was going to say Bakary Sagna. What year are we in? Sorry. Do you think Mikel Arteta has got the right idea, utilising Madueke as a left winger, or did you think he was going to be a backup to Saka on that right-hand side? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. Fabrice Hawkins has reported that Villarreal has contacted Axel Disasi and negotiations are ongoing. Newcastle, other Premier League and Italian clubs are keeping an eye on him and monitoring him. Chelsea will ask for around £25 million and the player is expected to leave. I'm going to be brutally honest, I forgot Axel Disasi was at Chelsea. I know he went on loan. No, he had a good loan spell. There were some talks of Villa trying to buy him on a permanent. That really went quiet. He's at Cobham, part of that team of players that are going to get sold this summer or moved on, whether it's loan or permanent sale. I completely forgot he was part of Chelsea's squad, which is probably bad of me, but it was just unexpected news of, oh yeah, we've got Disasi and we're looking to sell him. Who's going to be interested? I think £25 million is a loss for Chelsea, because I think we spent £45 million on him. It's a £20 million devaluation over the last couple of seasons. But I feel like Chelsea will just offload him at any means. I feel like they overpaid for him. They overpaid for the Monaco brothers of Disasi and Badiashile, in my opinion. Now, Badiashile was £35 million. I think it was that way around. It was one or the other. I think Badiashile was £35 million, and I feel like there's a really top player in there. He's been very solid in the the second half of the season. For any time that he's come on and played, he's been very, very solid. Again, it's just injuries with him at the moment, and he did go for a spell where he was absolutely awful, and I'll be the first to hands up to say I wanted rid of him, right? And my opinion has slowly changed because he has come on and done a job very well. Disasi, I respect what he'd done. Like, he was part of that Chelsea defence that conceded the most goals in our Premier League history. It was that under the Poch era, right? And I've seen Milk turn quicker than Axel Disasi. He's a very, very slow player, and we played him out at right back. He had some good games at right back. He's mainly a centre back. But look, other clubs, Aston Villa liked him. Other clubs like Villarreal and Newcastle are monitoring him. They like him as a defender. He can go on to be a very good defender, and he is an okay defender. He was just very inconsistent in a Chelsea shirt full of mistakes as well. So look, if we can get £25 million for him, I will drive him to the ground that he needs to go to. Simple as that. I've got no disrespect, no shade at Disasi, but it's £25 million that we can use to raise funds for other players, or all these fines or whatever it is that we can use. That would be, I think that is a very sizable amount for Axel Disasi, considering how the last few seasons have gone for him. But yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below about Axel Disasi. Should Chelsea keep him? Do you think £25 million enough? Would you want to sell him to someone like Villarreal or another Premier League club like Newcastle or Villa? Very curious to know your thoughts. Do you think that Disasi would do well at Villarreal or an Italian club? Because I feel like in an Italian league, Disasi would absolutely shine, where the football is still physical, but not as intense as the Premier League and a bit more slower on the ball. I feel like Disasi could really thrive in that environment. So I'm very curious to know your thoughts. The Athletic have reported that Bayern Munich have set their sights on signing Christopher Nkunku from Chelsea again. After failing to land targets such as Florian Wirtz and Nico Williams, they are now keen on bringing Nkunku back to Germany. Chelsea would demand a permanent exit. Please come in and buy the guy. And I said in previous videos that I'm kind of up in the air, on the fence with Nkunku. I'd love to see him do well at Chelsea, and he's had this kind of rekindled passion for playing for the Blues. But I just don't want to sell him for £35 million to Manchester United. I just don't want to see that transfer happen. If he goes to a Premier League rival, I feel like he will do very well. right? I feel like Nkunku is a Premier League player. We're starting to see signs of why we signed him in the first place. When he's got confidence and he's getting a good run of minutes, he is a good player. But I'd much rather him go back to Germany and play for Bayern Munich. He can then set his sights on World Cup of next year and get him back into the France team. And he loves the Bundesliga. It's where he played his best football. The football that got him on the map to let Chelsea go spend big money on him. Out of the two clubs of Bayern Munich and United, I would much rather him go to Bayern Munich, and I'd be more than happy to see that happen. I just don't want to see him go to a Premier League rival. I'd rather him stay at Chelsea and do well, or try, rekindle his form, than we sell him for a cutthroat price of 35 million to a rival where he could then still potentially go on, do very well, and it can come back and bite us in the bum. But that's just me. I just find it very interesting that Bayern Munich came in, we outpriced them in January. So it'd be very interesting to see what Chelsea say this time in the summer window, where there's no January window tax. Are we going to ask for the same 35 million, or are we going to go, right, Bayern Munich, we'll do this deal for around 50 million euros, which is probably 42 to 46 million pounds, which is a bit more on the money, and we could probably make our money back, break even on Nkunku, or even try and make a profit. It depends. If Chelsea get greedy with it and say we want 80 million, I don't think Bayern Munich will pay it. But the position that Chelsea are in is Munich have lost out on a few other signings this summer of Wirtz and Nico Williams. So, look, they want to get someone in on their target list. Chelsea are in the position to go, okay, cool. We'll sell them abroad. We can ask for a little bit more money than what we will if we're selling to someone like United for 35. I think it makes a lot of sense in my opinion. But I'd love to know your thoughts down below. Do you think Bayern Munich can secure the signature of Christopher Nkunku? The other question I want to ask you is, if he was to go to Bayern Munich, whose position does he take place of? Now, I know Musiala went for a horrific injury, so he's not going to be playing, but Bayern Munich's squad is pretty stacked in a lot of areas, so would Nkunku even get game time? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Mike McGrath has just reported that Crystal Palace have inquired about Josh Acheampong on a season-long loan from Chelsea, and I have one word to you, Crystal Palace: no. We do not want to see Josh Acheampong go on loan. Now, look, that's very reactionary of me, very emotional. I think Josh Acheampong is a top quality player. Every time he's played for Maresca, he's been unbelievable. Centre back, all right. Midfield, no problem. Right back, unreal. Left back, no problem. He is such a Swiss Army knife player. So young, big stature, good defensive IQ, good footballing IQ for someone of his age. Plays like he's been playing the game for many, many years at the top level. Unbelievable player. There are two sides to this. I want to keep Acheampong at Chelsea because I think this year he will actually get a lot more minutes. And you've got the likes of Gusto, Reece James and Acheampong. If we're not going to go get that left back up, then there is going to be even more minutes floating around. We do have a stacked sixth position with Santos, Caicedo, Asugo, obviously Enzo and other players, Lavia. I feel like this is the season where Josh needs to kick on and get more minutes. And that's not his fault because he's taken every opportunity he's got. He's seized it. He's seized it and played it to perfection. I feel like it's on Enzo Maresca to give him more minutes. The only positive I can see from a potential loan, especially to a Premier League club, is if Josh goes on loan this season and plays 30 league games, I think it's a good decision. Because it's incredible for Josh Acheampong's development to start 30 games for a Premier League season. And that's not me saying I want to get rid of him, because I don't. I want to keep him. But when I'm thinking of the player specifically, we've seen this before when there's links of Acheampong going away, and he's come out and said, only if it makes sense for my development, because the long term is I want to be Chelsea's right back. I want to be a Chelsea player. I think that does fit the bill. If he can go to someone like Crystal Palace and play 30 games in a season, I'm all for it, because that is going to incredibly boost his development. We know how good he is, but imagine him with an entire season under his belt of consistent games. It would be an unbelievable season for him. However, if Maresca's got him in the plans of saying, look, we're playing across all the competitions, you're going to get many minutes, you're going to get at least 30 games across the season, then we should keep him. We should keep him, and then it's down to Maresca to manage his minutes. But that's just my opinion. I don't want to see him go anywhere unless it's for his development. I'm totally in tune with what him and his agents have been saying. If you can go to Crystal Palace on loan and play 30 games, I'm all for it, man. I think that's an incredible move in terms of Chelsea and Acheampong for his development to come back and be an even better player than he currently is. But I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Should we loan out Acheampong for a development season if he's guaranteed at least a minimum of 25-30 games across the season? Or do you keep him at Chelsea and it's down to Enzo Maresca to put him into the Chelsea team and play more games than he has done last season this season? The Athletic have also reported that Chelsea have a very strong interest in Morgan Rogers, while also keeping tabs on Alejandro Garnacho, a player they've been monitoring since January. Additionally, the club has inquired about Malik Fofana. We've gone back in full circles. I know obviously I do daily news. We talk about some of the same things across a period of time because there are either ongoing stories or that's what's being reported all the time. Went quiet for a little bit because we had the Joao Pedro, and then we had like Mohamed Kudus and other players as well. Malik Fofana popped up and then disappeared again. Nusa popped up and then disappeared again. What I find very interesting is Chelsea have a long list of targets, and these three haven't really gone away. Fofana's relatively new on this list, but again, he isn't going away. But you've got Morgan Rogers, unbelievable baller. Garnacho, I don't want anywhere near the club. A lot of people have shared their thoughts about it. We just don't want him near the club. And Fofana would be an unreal signing. Now, on that left wing position, we've got Gittins, but we're still pretty weak. When you look at especially if Madueke goes, we do need another winger that can play on that left-hand side, at least in my opinion. We've got Esteval, Neto for the right. Then we have Gittins on the left. Madueke goes, that's 3 wingers, which is in the position we're in now with Neto. We've got Tyreek George, but it depends whether Tyreek George is going to go on loan or be part of Enzo Maresca's plans this season. Because again, if he is, he gets minutes and he's in rotation with Gittins, and it'd be an incredible season. But the reality of it is, are Chelsea going to trust Tyreek George for an entire Premier League season in rotation with Gittins, or are they going to look at it like a Josh Acheampong situation, where there is potentially a Premier League loan or a Championship loan where he can play the entire season and really kick on because we know how good he is? So we are very thin in the wide areas currently. Esteval coming in, Neto on the right. I think that's incredible rotation. Yes, Neto can play on the left, but he's better on the right. And I'm sure he would agree with that. Obviously, he can play well on the left. Currently, we have Madueke, who looks to be leaving. So who do you bring in? Do you bring in a Garnacho on the left? Is that an upgrade? I don't know. Fofana would be very exciting, and he's got a very good footballing brain and good and very clinical in his decision-making and finishing in the final third. Had an incredible Europa League campaign last season. I'd love to see him on the left. Gittins and Fofana rotating. Oh, be unbelievable. Morgan Rogers, on the other hand, absolute baller. My only question around Morgan Rogers is, where is he going to play? If Nkunku goes, it makes sense to bring him in because he can play as that 10. He can play on that left-hand side. He can play pretty much across that front four, which Maresca likes. Are we going to bring him in to play him as a left winger? I don't think that we would bring him in as a left winger. Or would we? I don't know, unless Enzo Maresca is going to tweak his system where the wingers come in a little bit more. But I don't think he is. He likes high and wide wingers that beat their fullbacks. Gittins has even confirmed that recently in previous videos with his first Chelsea interview. So when it comes to Morgan Rogers, who primarily plays as a 10, maybe off the right-hand side, I mean, maybe you push Neto to the left, so you've got Gittins and Neto on the left, and then you've got Morgan Rogers and Esteval on the right. Unreal, but we want to see Morgan Rogers a bit more centrally, and then you've got the likes of Cole Palmer. Esteval William will probably get some minutes centrally across the season. Not saying he's going to get a lot there, but you know, he might be rotated in there. So you could have Cole Palmer and Morgan Rogers in rotation in a 10. That would be unbelievable business for Chelsea. The other question to ask is, how much money are Villa going to ask for? That's the bread and butter. How much are Villa going to ask for? They are in trouble with PSR because of their player wages and things like that. How much would they ask for? That's the question. So I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below regarding these 3 players. What do you think makes more sense? Let's say we get rid of Noni Madueke, right? So from the wide areas, would you bring in someone like Garnacho or Fofana? Or would you bring in Morgan Rogers to play in off the left and maybe rotate in the 10? Or would you go for Morgan Rogers because he can be the rotation in the 10 if we sell Nkunku? Very curious to know your thoughts down below, and how much do you think Villa would ask for Morgan Rogers? And that's all the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean that, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.